BSE and Dun & Bradstreet's Equity Broking Awards 2014. I'm Vinnie Saluja, welcoming you to another night that rides high on excellence and achievement. It's the traditional night where we felicitate the year's biggest performers in the equity broking space, a tradition now going on for 6 years. To set the tenor for the evening, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President and Managing Director, Dun & Bradstreet India, Mr. Kaushal Sampath.
It is with great pleasure that I welcome you this evening to the 6th edition of Dun & Bradstreet's Equity Broking Awards in partnership with the BSE. These awards, as all of you know, are meant to celebrate and acknowledge the achievements of India's equity broking industry. I would also like to take the opportunity to announce the launch of the 8th edition of our publication, India's Leading Equity Broking Houses 2014. It would be apt to begin by saying that the mood of the country has changed completely over the past 1 year, going from a sense of worry and apprehension to hope and excitement about the advent of Achhe Din. Over the past couple of years, ladies and gentlemen, the debt market has been far more attractive as a source of resource mobilization, with public debt issues, whether bonds or convertible debentures, non-convertible debentures rather, raising more capital in both financial year 14 and financial year 13 than IPOs. We have seen increasing level of participation from all stakeholders to educate investors on the fundamentals of investment and risk mitigation associated with equity as an asset class. And I call this a very, very positive trend, because if you don't have enlightened investors, you're never going to have deep and liquid markets. Broking companies are now taking numerous initiatives to enhance the financial literacy and empower investors to make informed decisions. So on this optimistic note, I would like to conclude by thanking all the equity broking firms, all of you, for your active and enthusiastic involvement, without which this publication and these awards would not have been possible, and for encouraging us over the years to continue with this initiative, no matter what the markets are at. Our congratulations and best wishes to all the award winners this evening for the activities in the future year. Thanks all of you for joining us, and I do hope that you will enjoy the insightful addresses and the evening ahead. Thank you.
I'm delighted to give you MD and CEO of BSE Limited, Mr. Ashish Kumar Chauhan.
Shri Jayant Sinha, Shri Kaushal Sampath, friends, ladies and gentlemen, by being the sponsors of this event, usually I get to talk to you once a year. But since we belong to the same industry, I think we talk every day, all of us. Being a stock exchange CEO, I don't actually get elated when markets go up, or don't get too worried when markets go down, as far as it happens in orderly manner, and there are reasons for that. But from Indian perspective, being an Indian citizen, and all of us are very patriotic, one thing I've been asking myself, why am so much more optimistic today than ever before? It's an interesting situation. Very little changed pre-May and post-May in terms of the actual activities, now that the activity is picking up. But a single man, changed the mood of the country. We still have $1.6 trillion, but only 2% of India invests. In last 20 years, we have become totally automated. Completely, thoroughly. We have depositories instead of share certificates. We have, instead of floors, we have mobile-based trading and screen-based trading and so on and so forth. But how is it that we have not been able to get newer investors into Indian stock markets? What did we do wrong? Did stock exchanges do something wrong? Did regulators do something wrong? Did investors do something wrong? Did companies do something wrong? What did we do wrong? And for me, it's a question which we need to ask ourselves as an industry, including brokers, is that what did we do wrong, or what we need to do right to take Indian investors from 2.6 crore to 26 crore by 2030, to take Indian market cap from $1.6 trillion to $16 trillion in by 2030. Can we do that? If we can do that, then we would have done a great patriotic act. In last 6 months, our number of orders coming to BSE has gone up from 15 crore a day to 45 crore a day. But I can take 100 times more number of orders. The amount of liquidity that has increased in BSE is manifold. Many of us have not looked at it yet. I sincerely urge you that if you want to remain relevant, come on BSE. With that, thank you very much for listening to me.
Please welcome our tonight's chief guest, Member of Parliament, Shri Jayant Sinha.
Mr. Sampath, Mr. Ashish Kumar Chauhan, friends from the broking industry, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the cusp of something very historic for India. And I'm very glad I have a chance to speak to you all about all of that. So let me start with the context, which is what was the situation we found ourselves in when we took charge on the 26th of May and the government was sworn in. The fact is that the economy that we confronted in May when we took over was the worst it had been in 25 years. Now you all know the economic parameters, you know the numbers, you know that GDP growth rate in India for the last 2 fiscal years had been below 5%. This has not happened in 25 years. In 25 years, we've not had 2 consecutive years of less than 5% GDP growth. So that was the state of the GDP growth rate. Inflation had been running at more than 10% for 5 sustained years. This was the worst inflationary environment of any major economy in the world. That was the situation that we inherited as far as inflation was concerned. And third, you all know what had happened to the current account deficit. You know what had happened in the August of 2013 when we had a near sort of panic in the currency markets, the rupee, of course, getting to 68 and so on. So that was the nature of the economy that we inherited when we took power in May 2014, just a few short months ago. Now, that in itself is bad enough. And these are the big numbers that everyone looks out and looks at very closely. But ladies and gentlemen, what was worse and what was far more damaging to the economy and your future prospects was the institutional decay and the institutional denigration and degradation that we found when we took over. And the net result of those two, the net result of the very poor economic performance and the net result of these institutions which had been corrupted and defiled was that business, consumers, both in India and around the world, had lost confidence in the Indian economy. There was no confidence in the Indian economy. No, there was no confidence in the management of the Indian economy. And you saw that in terms of the FII flows that were coming in, the FDI flows that were coming in, and most importantly, you saw that in terms of domestic investment that plunged. This was the situation that we confronted. So when we took over, we realized that we had to deal with it in 2 or 3 different ways. The first and most important thing, which I think the decisive electoral mandate resulted in, was to reassure investors, business people, to change sentiment and to ensure people that they had, and assure them fully that they had, so that they would have confidence in the government, confidence in the economic management of the country. But then we come to the second aspect of what needed to get done, which was to basically fix a lot of low-hanging fruit, take care of that, so that we could at least make some of the important decisions that had to be done so that the economy could at least begin to start moving. And then the third aspect of what we've had to do, which is what we're really working on right now, which is the deep structural things that need to get fixed in the economy. I think the market's telling us something. I think we're in for some very historic times. I think we have the wealth creation opportunity of our lifetimes in front of us. And I, for one, am very excited to be here, to be standing in front of you, and to be able to serve this great country of ours, to be able to take advantage of all these great opportunities. Thank you very much.
gentlemen, with such knowledge and vision to benefit from, we can only be richer with the fact that the Honorable Minister has agreed to do a Q&A session. So without any further ado, he shall now take your questions.
This is Ramesh Bhojwani. First and foremost, it's absolutely brilliant and marvelous, the encapsulation of the 10 big-ticket reforms on your agenda, which are instantly implemented by your government. You have also highlighted that we are heading to a $5 trillion economy. A point which comes to my mind, rather than a question, okay, if we can simplify and make sense of our taxation and duty structures, like the government of Singapore did in 1971 under Mr. Lee. He made the taxation and duties radically and rationalization, whereby the economy grew the collection of and compliance grew 800 times over the next 15 years. And his government till today is returned to power with 99% votes. And he is not allowed to retire even at the age of 74. Would like to have your thought on the same.
No, thank you very much. You're exactly right. We need to do a lot as far as the tax code is concerned. There's no doubt about it. Apart from the fact that the tax code is both overly complicated and full of sort of discretionary loopholes, the fact is that the tax to GDP ratio of India is only 10%. Part of the challenge that we have to provide better healthcare services, better education, more public goods to our people is that our tax collection is only 10% of GDP. In an advanced economy, tax collection ranges between 20 to 25% of GDP. So we are way below where we need to be. And in part, that's because we have not sufficient compliance as far as taxes are concerned.
Yeah, this is Sandeep Chandalia from Crown Group. I wanted to know that when can we actually go ahead on the ranking? Because recently the ranking for doing easy business world over, we have gone down on the ranking maybe 2 drops. Further on the infrastructure also we have gone on the ranking. When can we expect to go up to maybe say in the first 20? Because that's very important. When the license Raj can end? Because most of the business people, whether it's too much of compliance in our industry or in any other industry, too much of compliance, too much of paperwork, too much of licenses all around, and too much of duality is there. So when can we actually see this thing easing off for business and so that we are at peace in doing business?
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
must say you all are asking all the right questions. These are all great questions to ask. I mean, on this whole issue of ease of doing business, I mean, isn't it ridiculous that we have to sign virtually every page of every legal document? I mean, like, how much time are we spending just signing legal documents, folks? You must be spending a lot of your time doing that, right? Every, sort of a financial statement that you hand in, every tax statement that you hand, everything has to be signed and signed and signed and signed. I mean, if we just stop and ask ourselves how much of our productive time is just signing documents, you'll see that we are wasting a lot of stuff in red tape, etc. The Prime Minister has been very clear. He said, we have to think of it not in terms of red tape, but in terms of red carpet, right? And so we've also declared that our goal right now is to move from where we are in the ease of doing business rankings, which sadly has dropped further to 142 from 138, to being in the top 50.
So my name is Vikas Khemani from Edelweiss. One of the big risks with most investors around the globe talks about what can go wrong with India. And I think one big risk which sort of is being talked about is the geopolitical situation with India, with Pakistan. So, and given the border escalation and all. So just wanted to get your perspective and thought, how do you see, Pakistan is sort of a failed state, democracy is not working. So it's not only about India's policy, but it's not only in our hand. So what's your assessment of this situation currently and in future?
Again, a great question. There's good news and bad news. The good news is all of you should be feeling a lot more secure now that our government is in power. I hope you all are feeling more secure. Right? So we are on the job. We are on the job, folks, and we are doing all that we can to ensure that India is more secure, that our army has the ammunitions, the weapons to protect ourselves under any and every circumstances. We're doing more as far as terrorism is concerned. We're doing as much as we can in terms of internal security. Just now, when we were in the US, there was a very wide-ranging talks with the US on both sort of maritime security, what we will do with our navies and the cooperation there, what we will do against global terrorism, global jihad, etc., etc. So we're doing many number of things to actually try and strengthen and improve the security of this nation and bring down the geopolitical risk. That's the good news. The bad news is we are in a very dangerous neighborhood, right? And so there's not a lot we can do about it. We can't just take, the Indian peninsula and move it somewhere else. It is a difficult neighborhood. We have a number of states around us that are, dealing with a number of stresses and have not been able to kind of get to a stable, prosperous democracy, which is what we would like them to do. And so we have to be very, very vigilant. As Thomas Jefferson famously said, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And so that's kind of where we have to be right now.
Hi, good evening, sir. My name is Kamlesh. I'm the CEO for Kotak Securities. Keep the question short. In a country where expectation runs far ahead of reality, we often hear of this conflict between populism and economic reforms. And we've heard that this is not how it is going to be in the current state, current form of government. Is it really a conflict? And how do you see the government managing this classical conflict between reforms and populism?
I mean, another great question. You guys are really surpassing yourself today. The Honorable Finance Minister said very clearly during his budget speech and in a number of interviews thereafter that our government believes in fiscal prudence. Fiscal prudence, not mindless populism. And that's exactly the reason why we took on this very tough target, despite the mess that we had inherited of 4.1% of fiscal deficit as a percent of GDP. And thankfully, in part because oil prices have come down, the economy is growing a little bit better than we had anticipated. I think we should be able to reach that 4.1% target. And we are quite confident of that. So we really are taking on an approach towards all of this that is not populist at all. Our overall economic philosophy is, sabka saath, sabka vikas, as we've said, is to really, and this is actually a good thought to end this conversation with. You have to understand that what the Prime Minister is trying to do, what all of us are trying to do, what we are striving to do, overall, net, at the end of the day, is to build India's productive capacity. We are trying to build India's productive capacity in terms of infrastructure, in terms of digital India, in terms of our manufacturing capability, and in terms of the skills and capabilities of our people. So what we're really trying to do through all of this is a supply-side revolution. Because if we build India's productive capacity, we can power this economy forward, we can create the jobs for our young people. But it has to be based on creating opportunities, creating infrastructure, creating empowerment for our people, and not through empty entitlements. And I think that's the very big difference between our approach and the approach of the previous government. The approach of the previous government was to make a lot of promises, to talk about rights, but to end up with just a series of empty entitlements that reflected mindless populism. On the other hand, what we are trying to do is to empower our people, provide them with the tools, the resources, the opportunities that they need to create better lives for themselves. And that is what we're trying to do, which is to build India's productive capacity. And I think that really is the right way forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for making this an interactive session. So, ladies and gentlemen, every Dun & Bradstreet Awards night is characterized by two highlights: the felicitation ceremony that unfolds later, and the release of the latest publication, which will happen in a few moments. For the past 8 years, DNB has had its finger on the pulse of the equity markets. All those inputs, research, and analysis have been captured in its definitive volume, India's Leading Equity Broking Houses 2014. In staying with that trend, this year's edition highlights the latest development in the broking industry with a focus on the key trends and major challenges. No wonder, when it comes to the release, we give it all the pomp and fanfare it merits. So saying, let me invite tonight's chief guest, Member of Parliament, Shri Jayant Sinha, to officially place in the public domain India's Leading Equity Broking Houses 2014. So now that we are all set for the award ceremony, may we invite our Honorable Minister Shri Jayant Sinha, Mr. Ashish Chauhan and Mr. Kaushal Sampath on the dais to begin the ceremony. So beginning with the first category of winner, the first winner of the category largest distribution network is Angel Broking Private Limited. Moving on to the largest equity e-broking house. The winner is ICICI Securities Limited. In the category Best Equity Broking House Cash segment, the award goes to Kotak Securities Limited. Congratulations to the winners of the first set of awards. May I now request the Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer of PC Jewellers, Mr. R.K. Sharma, to join us in presenting the next set of trophies. So ladies and gentlemen, we are now exploring performance under the banner Best Growing Equity Broking House Retail. So let's give it up for Axis Securities. Gaining momentum in the 2014 edition of the BSE Dun & Bradstreet Equity Broking Awards, it's the Best Equity Broking House Retail up on the marquee. The name up in the lights reads ICICI Securities Limited again. Let's hear it for the winners in that segment and for our leaving presenter, Mr. R.K. Sharma. Thank you very much, sir, for presenting the trophies to the deserving winners. Who would have thought that anything besides trading terminals could have caught the attention of the entire broking community? But here we are with all the attention on the good old me as I announce the next awards category, Best Equity Broking House Derivatives segment. The winner is SMC Global Securities Limited. In the segment, Best Equity Broking House Institutional Clients, the trophy goes to Edelweiss Securities Limited, BSE Dun & Bradstreet Equity Broking Awards are guaranteeing a fair share of nail-biting outside the trading hours. Keeping the suspense growing a bit longer, the announcement is for the category Emerging Equity Broking House. The winner is Zerodha. So one final time to speculate, if I'm permitted to use that word, on who will end up on the awards roster next. One final, because yes, this is the last awards category on the night. And I dare say the biggest. Let's go straight down to it. For the Best Equity Broking House overall, the coveted trophy goes to ICICI Securities Limited, a third time tonight. And I'm sure Mr. Vishal Gulecha, Head Equity Product, could even reach the dais blindfolded by now. So this brings us to the end of the felicitation ceremony of the BSE Dun & Bradstreet Equity Broking Awards. To bring down the curtain on the business part of the evening, I invite Mr. Jayesh Bahadur, Head Sales, Dun & Bradstreet India, to raise a vote of thanks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I consider it as a privilege to propose a vote of thanks on the release of India's leading equity broking houses and Equity Broking Awards 2014. This remarkable evening has allowed us to felicitate India's leading equity broking companies for their excellent performance. I would start by thanking our chief guest for tonight, Mr. Jayant Sinha, Member of Parliament, for gracing the event and addressing us. We wish all the companies featured in India's leading equity broking houses 2014 all the best for their future endeavor and congratulate all the award-winning companies. We look forward to your participation in the 2015 edition.